For now, they're keeping their distance. But even after they go back, they have to decide whether they'll stay. East Palestine is in an economically depressed area, Ratner said, but it had been on a rebound. He and his wife had been considering opening another cafe there, but now they're worried that that plan is in jeopardy. That's where we've been raising our kids, finishing college, buying a business, and that's been our place, he said. In the future, are we going to have to sell the house? Is it worth any money at this point? Which is a good point. I saw a meme talking about, oh, I just want to raise my family and have a little home what do they call that? A home, like a ranch basically. Oh, I just want to live in the rural area and raise, grow my turnips or whatever. And then the, globalist big government's like, nope.
Have a little homestead. And somebody in the chat said that there's something in the book called Simuvac. We're going to get to that. It's called Simuvac, which is deals with the simulations gone live that we're going to get to. But this next paragraph is pretty important. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, a town wonders what it's coming home to. Let me just check. I want to make sure I'm not muted. Okay. 5 of the tankers on the train that overturned last week were carrying liquid vinyl chloride, which is extremely combustible. Last Sunday, they became unstable and threatened to explode. First responders and emergency workers had to vent the tankers, spill the vinyl chloride into a trench, and then burn it off before it turned the train into a bomb. Authorities feared that an explosion could send shrapnel up to a mile away, but that didn't happen. The controlled burn worked, and the evacuation order for East Palestine residents was officially lifted Wednesday after real-time air and water monitoring did not find any contaminant levels above screening limits. That right there,
which is what happens in the novel.
Yeah, exactly. And
this
that
whole
right there
thing is the novel. Okay, so can I because we've covered the most important parts of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this I can't really overestimate like how weird this is. How much we expect this kind of thing, but how weird it is. So I covered this book in August, and I covered White Noise. I've covered like 4 Don DeLillo books, Mal 2, Libra. I've read Running Dogs. I've read Cosmop. I read pretty much all of his books, and this is weird because the thing that the book is about. The book is based on a train crash that happened in Bhopal in India, which was, a chemical spill based on a train derailment. And then they write the book, DeLillo writes the book. And in August, on the stream, I was talking about how the book kind of predicts Karunka in a number of ways because of the simulation, the thing gone live. You just had a picture up on the screen of the guys in Mylar Mylar suits, but in the book he calls it Milex. And so the whole thing it's like a play-by-play. And then when this happened, it happened so they filmed the movie, and the movie came out in December. And I didn't want to watch the movie because the book, I've read the book like 4 or 5 times. It's my favorite book, my favorite novel. And
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've read it. I first read it in 10th grade. A teacher gave it to me. It was like, if you want to read what a novel is supposed to be now, this is it. And it really struck me. I read it again. I was in Europe. I read it again. I read it twice more. And so I know it pretty well. And so when this happened, it was amazing because they filmed the movie in this town and the people were extras in the movie. And then this happened to them right after they filmed the movie. And it's the same thing in the same town, right? Also, the guy's name is Ratner. It makes you think of Brett Ratner. His name's Ben Ratner. But I mean, so what I think is happening here is that regardless of any of the planned things that happen, the thing that strikes me about this is that this is like, because this book is, when you think of like postmodernism and postmodern literature, this book is it. This is like the postmodern book. And what that means is that we have like a landscape, a wasteland that has moved on from the modern era. This is post atomic bomb dropping globalist world. We have a wasteland where the wasteland on the outside is kind of transferred to the way that people in their everyday lives seem to go about things that have no meaning, right? They don't recognize like any sort of meaning in anything. And it's fragmented by natural disasters, it's framed by plane crashes, train crashes. Basically, like there are large parts of the book that are about how things aren't real unless they see them on television, which is certainly true in the 80s, right? Book was published in 1985. But it's even more so now because it's like everything is live all the time because, you can just live stream it, right? So you can imagine people like not looking at the thing outside and checking to make sure it's real on their phone in the town. And
Yeah, I
that
see
deal,
this massive black cloud
yeah,
of toxic fumes, but the CDC or the government says that it's totally safe and that there's no worries.
yeah, and that deals with the medical ID aspect of it, which is just
Crazy.
enough, which is just further. This is just further, Karanka era, like biomedical data
Yeah.
all the time, right? 24/7. And the people in the town are used as a kind of witting or unwitting test subjects for this thing. Now, the chemical spill is is amazing because in the book it's called niodine D. It's a made up chemical, right? And in real life it's called polyvinyl chlorate. And so the thing about this chemical, and I'm not, I don't know about all this stuff, but I do know that what happened was that the train derailed and the stuff started spilling. And like you said, the problem was that polyvinyl chlorate is in liquid form, but when it is exposed to 7 degrees, like a temperature of 7 degrees, has to stay cold. And when it's 7 degrees, it starts to turn into gas, and it's like combustible.
Wait a
And
minute. In the
it's
book, is
highly
it the
toxic.
same? In the
It's
book, is
it,
it this?
it's like this. It's the same. It's just called by a different name, but it's the same thing.
Is
It's
the
the
same
exact.
chemical?
In the book, it's called niodine D, and
Okay.
this it's polyvinyl chlorate, but they do the same thing.
Okay.
So so
Wow.
so they have to burn off the stuff before it starts to combust, right? And so
Wow.
and so the problem was that like they are burning off this highly toxic chemical, which is creating a black cloud. In the book, it's called a black plume. It's called a black plume of death. And it reminded me in August when I was reading, I think I made reference to remember when the explosion happened in Beirut?
Yeah.
And it was like the bubble bomb, and
Yep.
it burst on the dock. And when you look at the footage of it, it explodes
Crazy.
and it's black, and then it turns red in stages, and it looks like it's animated. It looks like
Yeah.
a Karanzon or something that's taking over, right? And the shockwave takes forever to reach people, but it explodes, right? So they had to burn this off. So by burning it off, now it's released into the atmosphere. And so the town, it's like the most techno postmodern type of spill. This isn't like the Exxon Valdez, right, where it's oil that goes into the water. That's terrible, but it's a thing, and they can deal with it. This is like, you see the videos that people go into their creek and they throw a rock into the creek, and it releases an iridium rainbow bubble up into the atmosphere.
Right.
And you just know that if you get that on your skin, or you get it in the drinking water, it's killing the animals.
Yep.
It's killing all the crops.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we
What are
didn't
you
mention
gonna
that.
do?
The livestock, right? They were
Yeah.
saying that all the livestock in these farms died. All of them died.
Yeah.
Every single cow. Like, what the heck, dude? And then I saw a video of somebody in East
Look at
Palestine.
that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's a techno black cloud of death.
Right. You've seen black goo. Now check out black clouds.
That's what it is. It's black goo. No, it is
Right.
that.
But I seen a video of somebody from East Palestine boiling water, and it just bubbled like this chemical toxic stuff. It's
Yeah,
like that film Stalker, the Tarkovsky film, where
Mhm.
they do the shot of the lake and it's just covered in that chemical soot or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that, dude. I mean, they're
So
just
the part that really gets me is that I watched the film yesterday morning, and I appreciated the film. I get what they're doing in it. I think that they chose a different way of going about it. Because the aesthetic of the film, not to get into like the film analysis, but the aesthetic of the film is like, it's very 80s, it's very capitalist, and they center on the technicolor of the grocery store as kind of a modern or a postmodern temple, right? Where everything you need is there. You're comforted by the colors and the fact that you can get anything you need. That's what like the supermarket represents in literature, at least. And there's a lot of like there's a lot of colors in it, and the dialogue is like very ironic, and it works to a certain extent. But the book is different from that because the book is much more all of the see DeLillo's so good because all the language is in like X-ray. It's all X's and it's like Milex, X-ray. Everything is hypersensitive. It's all grays and blacks and like radio waves. So there's a whole section of the book that is, it's the airborne toxic event. And it's interesting that they call it that because, we talk about Big Nine event. We talk about these massive events that happen. And this is a thing that's sitting there. And what happens is that all the families in the town, like they get evacuated and then they go back. But there's a part that's missing from this from people who haven't read the book, which is that there is a solution to this whole thing. And it's something called DILAR. And DILAR, of course, is a big FARMA solution.
Really?
And, oh yeah. Yeah, so what happens is the wife
fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah, so the wife starts taking this and it's interesting because in the film the way they do it is like they're sitting in the station wagon and we see her hand and her hand is empty and she kind of goes like this and now there's a pill in it and she swallows it real quickly and it's almost like sleight of hand. Dude. Right, which is supposed to represent the fact that like she's taking it in secret, but also the whole thing is secretive, and that the symptoms are almost invisible, and we don't know what's happening, like what the solution is, why she's taking it. Well, DILAR is kind of it's like a hallucinogenic soma opiate, okay, mixed
Substance
with
D.
Yeah, it's yes, and so the main character Jack Gladney. And he goes by J.A.K. Gladney because it's supposed to be funny because he founds a department of Hotler studies at the College on the Hill. And the College on the Hill is like a liberal arts college. It's supposed to be like Kenyon College in Ohio, right? So he has like the department of Hotler studies, which is kind of ironic. And then he has a friend named Murray who like founds a department of Elvis studies. That's interesting because these are like the twin pillars of the kind of globalist American capitalist, fame worship, right? The two most famous people in the 20th century. And he suspects that he's having an affair and he suspects that his wife is having an affair, but he can't figure out like where she's getting these, even if she's on the pills. So he figures out finally, he traces him back to a guy he sees, every now and again at like certain points in the novel, and he tracks him down to a motel outside of town. And the guy is basically an East German Operation Paperclip guy who is supplying the big FARMA for the solution for the Niodine D spill. Okay, which is like so expected. I mean, most people know that. I've got 2 books on it here about how. Big farms come out of the World War II experience, right? The speed, right, comes out of World War II. Hitler was addicted to what's the Eucadol? Eucadol was an opiate derivative like morphine that was given to him by Theodore Morell, and then finally methadone. Methadone was invented by the Germans, but it was called Dolafine. It was named after Hitler.
Yeah.
Bayer they're the ones who invented heroin. So this is just just another thing, right, that comes out of it. But I think that I wouldn't, and I said this back in August, that something like this, not like a prediction, this is going to happen, but like this is bound to happen, right? Because, and it's not even a surprise because the infrastructure, the way that the plans kind of work, the uniting event of a mass event like this, plus the weird hallucinatory aspects of the chemical spill are sort of it's like a media event. It's like a media event in real life. So what happens in the book, the main takeaway from the book is that in the post Niodine D chemical spill world, or the post polyvinyl chlorate world, there has to be a practical solution, which is to be expected, which is the DILAR. Right, there's going to be a tracking solution, and the other thing is that it changes the sort of psychic consciousness of people, because what it does is it unites metaphor and reality. So figurative ways of understanding the world and literal ways of understanding the world are no longer separate. They become one thing because the thing becomes the thing itself. So that's kind of a dehumanizing, demoralizing thing because in the postmodern world, it's like people already in general they're fragmented and they're not looking, they have no meaning.
It's a form of
Right.
trauma, and that's one of the reasons they do these crises is to keep you in this perpetual crisis state of trauma. Whether it's always a new boogeyman or always a new, crisis trauma.
Right.
Earthquakes, chemical disasters, weather modification,
Yeah.
all this stuff. Yeah.
DeLillo says the air was rich with extrasensory material, nearer to death, nearer to second sight, a smashing intensity. Right, which shows you that this is like we're not in like the early 20th century modernist era or like a naturalistic era where it's like people or animals or pond scum. It's like beyond that. It's like the spirit that people lacked is now present and ubiquitous because of the smashing intensity of the radio waves that are there in the black cloud of death. I mean, that's kind of like what Hadron Collider is, right? That's like why, all this stuff, it's like physics and spirituality, these people become one thing. That becomes their spirit.
Oh, yeah, right? With their statues of the destroyer Shiva,
Yeah, they put up these statues next to the massive, physics events where they're smashing particles together. There's no accident. I mean, that's highly symbolic, right? So in other words, I think that, I wouldn't be surprised if obviously there is a big FARMA thing that comes out of this. They will, the fact that the book is a reflection of the train disaster, right? So it already happened, and then he writes the book about it, and then they write the movie about it, and then the people who are extras in the movie, it happens to them in real life in the same place. Is like all of these things are smashing into one another, and you have a singular event where it's too much for people to understand and to comprehend. And I think that it just is another play on the fact that DeLillo is right in the sense that in the world that we find ourselves in, and that we're gonna, this is gonna keep happening, that like the way that you expect things to happen, it's already happened. It's like right now. And it's a demoralizing, dehumanizing thing where people are kind of reduced to data numbers and they look for hope in the solution. I mean, look, even in the press conferences, they're like, you need to, you need to put your hope in the government. We're going to be here to save you, which like anybody who has any mind at all is like, remember even the Reagan speech, remember Reagan, like that was the cornerstone of one of his presidential runs, was like the words that people don't want to hear when you come to their house are, we're from the government, we're here to help you. That was the cornerstone. So it's like they're taking that and they're just throwing that out the window, and now we're doing the opposite because we're further on into the brave new world.